Good morning once again, my brothers and sisters. Here we are for another Living Hope Today study, and I want to thank you once again for the fact that you continue to spread the gospel and the word of God all over the world with a simple click, a simple share, a simple follow. We just thank you for your participation in this ministry and ask you to keep it up. That's great. Well, today we find ourselves in 1 Kings chapter 2. And we're watching a transition here. It started in 1 Kings chapter 1. In fact, the whole book of Kings is going to be about the leadership of Israel over decades, even centuries of time. Well, here we see the first transition, and that is from the throne of David to the throne of Solomon. And today in chapter 2, we're going to watch as things get squared away in terms of justice. The things that David never dealt with are brought back up and told to Solomon it's time to deal with those things. Let me show you what I mean. When you get to verse 1, it says, when the time drew near for David to die. So in chapter 1, he's in bed trying to stay warm, and in chapter 2, he's getting ready to die. So the transition is coming soon. He gave a charge to Solomon his son, and he said, I'm about to go the way of all the earth. He said, so be strong, show yourself a man. All right, stand up, right? Good advice, fatherly advice. In fact, this is an amazing moment in David's life where we have seen him fail to give advice in so many of his family situations. Absalom, Amnon. There are times where he just seems to disappear, even though fatherly advice might be desperately needed. Well, here he's giving it. And as he prepares to leave this earth, he says, I want you to observe what the Lord your God requires. So the first thing I have for you, son, do what God wants you to do. Walk in his ways. Keep his decrees and commands, his laws and requirements as written in the law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go. So first, follow the Lord. Obey the Lord. Do what the Lord wants to do. Oh, and look at the end of that verse. Oh, by the way, if you set your sights to make that happen in your life, you're going to prosper in everything you do. You're going to prosper wherever you go. Oh, and there's another benefit to that, and here it comes in verse 4, that the Lord may keep his promise to me. So, hey, guess what, Solomon? You're more than just going to prosper and be blessed by God through obedience wherever you go, but you're also going to maintain the Davidic line that God has promised. He says what? If your descendants watch how they live. What's that? If. Do you see that? There's a condition. If they do, okay. If they don't, well, it might not be like that, right? It might not turn out the way we wanted to. Well, understand that God's faithfulness continues to override our disobedience. And we see here that David says, if your descendants watch how they live, and if, it's a condition. If they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. These are big ifs. And as we get into the book of Kings, we'll see that there's a lot of different choices than the one David is urging Solomon to make. As we move forward, it says, now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me. Now, you remember Joab was David's commander of the military, right? But you remember also that Joab did some terrible things without David's permission, and David never responded in terms of rebuking him, demoting him, disciplining him in any way. So here we are. You know yourself what Joab did to me. Okay. What he did to the two commanders of Israel's armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jethar. What did he do? He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle. There was no provocation. He just killed them. And with that blood stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. So here comes David's instruction. Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace. So, hey, David's telling Solomon, look, I didn't deal with him when I could have or maybe even should have, but I'm getting ready to pass on and I want you to deal with him. Don't let him just die sleeping in his bed. But show kindness to the sons of Barzillai, of Gilead, and let them be among those who eat at your table. Why? Well, they stood by me when I fled from your brother Absalom. You remember the rebellion that happens at the end of 2 Samuel. Well, here David's remembering it too. Here's somebody that stayed with me. So be nice to him and his sons, okay? Show them kindness. And remember, you have with you Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who called down bitter curses on me that day I went to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death by the sword. Isn't it interesting that David remembers Shimei as he prepares to die? He remembers the insults. He remembers the casting of the stones and the dust. He remembers what a harsh treatment he received from this one person. And now as he's getting ready to go, he remembers his promise. I told him I wasn't going to kill him for what he did, but now do not consider him innocent. All right, we're not going to forget what he did, even though I promised I wasn't going to kill him. Here's something for you to think about, son, is basically what David's saying here. You are a man of wisdom. You will know what to do to him. Bring his gray head down to the grave in blood. Wow. Wow. David issues the hit, as we might say in modern language. We're not going to let that go. We're not going to die without knowing that that guy got dealt with. All right. Then David rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. All right. All that means he died. They buried him in Jerusalem. He had reigned for 40 years over Israel, 7 years in Hebron, and 33 in Jerusalem. David had an extensive reign over the people of Israel as God's anointed king. So David has now exited the stage of history, and now we're going to see what Solomon does. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established. Oh, that's good. Well, wait a minute. Verse 13, now Adonijah, the son of Haggith, that's also David's son, Solomon's half-brother, went to Bathsheba, that's Solomon's mom, if you remember. Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, asked him, do you come peacefully? And he answered, yes, peacefully. Why does she ask that? Well, you remember that Adonijah has already tried to grab the monarchy for himself. It was only David's intervention in chapter 1 that kept him from becoming the king. And instead, Solomon was installed. Okay. So what does he say? I have something to say to you. And Bathsheba says, okay, you may say it. All right. As you know, he said, the kingdom was mine. Oh, wow. All Israel looked to me as their king. All right. My coup was successful is what he's saying. I had the power. I had the people. I was ready to go. But things changed and the kingdom has gone to my brother. Yeah, things changed, a little bit of an understatement, but my dad intervened in all that and said, no way, that's not going to be, because I know from God's own appointment, Solomon is the one to be the king. Things changed. The kingdom has gone to my brother, for it has come to him from the Lord. At least Adonijah understands that this is an act of God that brought Solomon to power. Now, I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me. You may make it, she said. He still hasn't said what he wanted, right? So he continued, please ask King Solomon. He will not refuse you. In other words, I'm not going to the king directly, but maybe if I go to his mom, I can get something done here. What does he want? Ask him to give me Abishag, the Shunammite, as my wife. Remember, Abishag was the young lady that was in charge of serving the king in his last days, keeping him warm, and and just attending to him. And now Adonijah rolls in and says, hey, I want her. Now, what you might not understand about ancient culture, we already saw it in the case of Absalom to some degree. If somebody is sleeping with someone that was with the former king, it appears to the people as an act of succession, where that one who has taken the king's concubines or the king's wife would now be king himself. So this is more than just, hey, she's cute and I'd like to be with her. This is more like, hey, this is going to symbolize to all the people that see this that I'm really the one that should be in power. That's the undercurrent here. Bathsheba doesn't argue. Very well, Bathsheba replied, I will speak to the king for you. All right, so now we move into that exchange. When Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah, the king stood up to meet her, bowed down to her, sat down on his throne. He had a throne brought for the king's mother. She sat down at his right hand. I have one small request to make of you, she said. Do not refuse me. The king replied, make it, my mother. I won't refuse you. Well, so she said, let Abishag the Shunammite be given in marriage to your brother Adonijah. That's the request. Wow. Watch this. King Solomon answered his mother, why do you request Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? You might as well request the kingdom. Solomon understands the symbolism and what that would portray to the general people, the populace, just like when Absalom slept with David's 10 concubines. He was declaring himself to be the king through that act. Well, Solomon understands that underneath all this request is Adonijah's lust for power. All right, he might as well request the kingdom for him. After all, he is my older brother, so the people would understand he would be next in line to David in natural causes if the Lord hadn't chosen Solomon. Yes, for him and for Abiathar the priest and Joab, son of Zeruiah. So in other words, all the power brokers on Adonijah's side would be really happy about me granting this request. Well, look at this. Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if Adonijah does not pay with his life for this request. I think that's a hard no from the throne. And now, as surely as the Lord lives, he who has established me securely on the throne of my father David and has founded a dynasty for me as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death today. Solomon is going to remove the rivals that perhaps are going to try to overthrow him. So King Solomon gave orders to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and he struck down Adonijah, and he died. To Abiathar the priest, the king said, go back to your fields in Anathoth. You deserve to die. In other words, Abiathar went with Absalom, was part of the rebellion, but I will not put you to death now, because you carried the ark of the sovereign Lord before my father David and shared all my father's hardships. So Solomon removed Abiathar from the priesthood of the Lord, fulfilling the word the Lord had spoken at Shiloh about the house of Eli. You remember Eli. Eli was a terrible priest. Back to 1 Samuel 3, and the Lord said to Samuel, see, I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears it tingle. At that time I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family from beginning to end, for I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons made themselves contemptible. He failed to restrain them. Therefore I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering. So here we are, hundreds of years later, and the line of Eli's priesthood is officially removed from Israel. All right? And the text wants to make sure we remember that. When the news reached Joab, who had conspired with Adonijah, though not with Absalom, he fled to the tent of the Lord and took hold of the horns of the altar. Everybody thinks they're going to escape their punishment by running to the tent. King Solomon was told that Joab had fled to the tent of the Lord and was beside the altar, and then Solomon ordered Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, go strike him down. So Benaiah entered the tent of the Lord and said to Joab, the king says, come out. In other words, I don't want to kill you right there in the tent, right? But he answered, no, I'm going to die here. And Benaiah reported to the king, this is how Joab answered me. And the king commanded Benaiah, do as he says. I don't care if he's in there or not. Strike him down and bury him. And so clear me and my father's house of the guilt of the innocent blood that Joab shed. So Joab is officially dealt with. The Lord will repay him for the blood he shed, because without the knowledge of my father David, he attacked 2 men and killed them with the sword, both of them. Abner, son of Ner, commander of Israel's army, and Amasa, son of Jether, commander of Judah's army, were better men and more upright than he. And he just killed them. May the guilt of their blood rest on the head of Joab and his descendants forever. But on David and his descendants, his house and his throne, may there be the Lord's peace forever. So Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, went up and struck down Joab and killed him, and he was buried on his own land in the desert. The king put Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, over the army in Joab's position and replaced Abiathar with Zadok the priest. Then the king sent for Shimei, the last one, and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. So he sets a parameter for Shimei. The day you leave the cross and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die. Your blood will be on your own head. And Shimei answered the king, what you say is good. Your servant will do as my lord the king has said. Shimei stayed in Jerusalem a long time, but 3 years later, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran off to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath, and Shimei was told, your slaves are in Gath. And at this he saddled his donkey and went to Achish at Gath in search of his slaves. So Shimei went away and brought the slaves back from Gath. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king summoned Shimei and said to him, did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you on that day you leave to go anywhere else, you can be sure you will die? And that time you said to me, what you say is good, I will obey. Why then did you not keep your oath to the Lord and obey the command I gave you? The king also said to Shimei, you know in your heart all the wrong you did to my father David. Now the Lord will repay you for your wrongdoing. So judgment's coming from the Lord as Solomon speaks it. But King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain secure before the Lord forever. Then the king gave the order to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, to went out and struck Shimei down and killed him. The kingdom was now firmly established in Solomon's hands. We went a little long today, but there has been a regal reckoning. All the past scores have been settled. Peace is now the plan, and we'll see what happens as we move forward under Solomon's reign. God's purpose is being accomplished. I pray you serve him well today, church. God bless you.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory, the first, the last, the future, the past. He is God.